Yay! BMORE. You lucky because I had the music on. I was about to spit
I know,
out
yeah,
and say
let's
something.
shh,
All right.
be quiet. You know, light cursing is one thing.
I'm putting the music back on.
Yeah, you do that.
I think you're very beautiful.
Thank you, dear. Mm-mm-mm. Hello, hello, hello. Just waiting for some more people to come in before we get started on this week. Hey, Dion. Hey, lady. Just waiting for some more people to come in before I get started. Hopefully, everyone's been having a great week and everyone's week wasn't that bad. I know everybody's going through something, you know, this week, but hopefully, it wasn't too bad. How's everyone's week going? I thought the planets would bring me a glow up, but they brought me exhaustion. It depends what you had going on, lady. It depends what you have going on in your own charts. And then, because, what we do here is mostly for people's risings. And then if they want to do their sun sign, possibly on top of that. But it's really for people's rising signs. So you might got something in your chart where you're not really built for what's going on right now. I'm supposed to have a favorable alignment today. Okay, well that's good. Hopefully your alignment is going well. Venus and Gemini. Yeah, so we'll be talking about Venus and Gemini. We'll be talking about Jupiter, Cazimi, and we'll be talking about the moon in Capricorn, which will be squaring the whole Aries energy that we started off with the new moon, that whole new moon in Aries. And so we've already had the eclipse, not the eclipse is next week. We've already had the full moon in Libra. And so now we're at the a moon, a half or quarter moon in Capricorn. And we'll have that this week. And through this going on, we should be working to like ending this whole cardinal cycle. But you know what, lady? I wonder if you also could possibly be just sensitive to like cardinal placements too, based off of your chart. So you could just have that, like you could have cardinal signs in a very sensitive place in your chart. All right, so let's just get started. So for this week, like I said, we'll have the moon squaring where we originally have um the new moon in Aries. We'll have a Jupiter Cazimi, and then we have Venus moving into Gemini. I have a cardinal sign, but it's in Cancer, and that's probably where you catching all of that stress, really, because this lunar cycle is all in cardinal signs. The new moon in Aries, that's a cardinal sign. The full moon in Libra, that's a cardinal. So that's probably why it's just too much for you. Depending how stuff is aspected, it could just, it might not be feeling the best, you know. But yeah, so this is what we talking about. And so when we started the Aries full moon, let me see if I can go back to it. When we started the new moon, I'm sorry, in Aries at the end of March, this dealt with a lot of impatience, shocking ideas, you know, just your mind, this restlessness and things going too quickly and impulsiveness, and possibly being scapegoated somewhere. But on the other hand, it also gave you opportunities for people to work on their leadership skills, to really work on self communication and public speaking, and also examining their own personal beliefs. But a lot of this could deal with a lot of things like of creativity, being alert, but also dealing with feels good, but also what drives you a bit crazy, what makes you impulsive. Now we just passed the full moon in Libra, which again dealt with the Chiron, Sun, Jupiter. They were all kind of all clustered together and they were combusted. And so this deals with people's really trying to be happy go lucky or optimistic, or learning to put some of these things in perspective. What is happiness into perspective? What is optimism in perspective? How are we being indulgent and into perspective? Where are we being selfish? And also helped us to deal with wounded emotions, maybe wounded issues and wounded mother dynamics. Emotion where we are emotionally unorthodox. It also helped us focus on holistic care, our own intuition, and healing where we feel abandoned and where we feel black sheep, and so that we can embrace our own uniqueness and our own talents. That was on the 6th, and before that, when I read the Aries one, that was on March 21st. And so now we're here in the last bit of the cardinal run through, and we have like a moon in Capricorn, and this moon, it opposes Mars and Cancer where we have it. And again, Mars is the ruler of Aries where we started, and Cancer is not as strong. It's more emotional, it's more reactive. Um, it has to be more intuitive. You can't really focus on pure force to get things done. So emotions are high, irritations are high, minor aggravations can be high, and there can be a lot of conflict and stress. And then it also squares that whole Chiron, Sun, and Jupiter placement that we talked about, with people healing their happiness, healing their joy, healing the issues that they have in masculinity, um, healing parts of their own identity and their own sense of self and where they're unique at. And so it squares this. And so some of these could apply a little pressure of having to resolve certain issues around these things. Um, it also trines Mercury and Uranus. And so we'll also have to deal with public speaking this week, or having to speak to people, communications, or having emotional conversations where we have to clear the air and use teamwork. We can also be meeting new people, we could be meeting new friends, and we could be networking a lot. And because this sextile Mars, there can be a lot of quick thinking, study aids, financial planning, having to learn patience, opportunities and focusing on them using intuition. And so we will get all these opportunities, and there's a side of it where people are very impatient, irritable, and very sensitive to very stressful situations. But it gives us an opportunity. We can persevere and push. If we can persevere and push through, it can give opportunities and give us new situations. And so trying to focus on using your intuition and unique twist on opportunities, learning to put our own unique twist on opportunities, and using teamwork and partners effectively. I also would suggest people this week to really try to be careful on the road. Matter of fact, let me see something real quick. I just want to look something up real quick. Give me a second, guys. Today's the 11th. Yeah. So yeah, I would encourage everyone to be careful on the road. Be careful how you are driving. Um, because as the week goes on, because of how things are aspected, um, it could lead for some travel issues coming up. People could have some um, issues driving, and you just want to be careful when you're driving on the road, especially since how Mars is aspected to Mercury and Uranus. Now, granted, it's mostly positive, but because Mars isn't, it's in its fall and it's not as strong or robust, just still be careful when we're driving and moving around. Um, we also have it where eventually during the week the moon will conjunct Pluto, and so dealing with controlling energies, and so dealing with controlling emotions, controlling women, family, and trying to understand what keeps you from having proper success as the week goes on. This is what we'll be facing in general. Um, there's also sextile to Neptune, so you'll have, as it goes on, the moon will open you up to more romance. You might feel more romantic. You might be able to listen more to your inner voice and your own intuition. There'll be a strong tangent for fantasies and dreams and movies and visualizations. But we can also be in situations where there can be subtle manipulation, either from you or other people. Eventually, later on in the week, the moon will move into Aquarius, and where it would square the Mercury and Uranus transit, where emotions and logic no longer are on par. You should be careful about being either too emotional or too logical for um, things to make sense. I wouldn't suggest y'all making any major purchases later on in the week. And conflict with women could be an issue. You could be more moody, rash. You could jump to conclusions, and this really just centers on, like, by midweek, wanting more change and more excitement, especially as we have, like, Venus moving into Gemini. You want more change and excitement. Now there could be some also issues with uniqueness versus uniqueness, and so uniqueness in, like, wanting to be new and to expand, like a whole mental expansion, um versus unique and being more taboo, being unique and being more fierce and dynamic. So you have, like, a part of yourself which is unique, or another part of yourself which is also unique, can kind of be at odds. And there could be some issues with, like, attachment versus detachment, or wanting attention from warm dynamics and, like, being the center of attention versus wanting attention through rebellion. So those are certain things that you would have to kind of contemplate and deal with. um uh, During this time, it will give you you do have a little bit of emotional balance, but there can also be some loneliness or some mild kind of sad or depressive feelings. By the end of the week, the moon will move into Pisces, and it'll conjunct Neptune, and so again the romance factor is there, but it'll really rev up um with a lot of romance, a lot of fantasies, daydreaming. Could possibly have some unusual outbursts that you never really had before, but there could also be, like, a push for having more quiet time. But this will make people more romantic and more dreamy than usual. Okay, so Jupiter's Cazimi. So for a few weeks, um, Jupiter and what else is over there? Chiron. Yes, Jupiter and Chiron have been combust in the sign of Aries, and when that happens, when they're in a certain degree range near the sun kind of weakens. The sun is so strong it weakens the effect of it. So people probably haven't been feeling as happy go lucky. They haven't been feeling just lucky in general, joyous. Maybe people have struggled with being open minded, um, and these dynamics. Also with Chiron there, people could be struggling with being their own maverick, forging their own path, healing. People can be struggling with certain health issues, grief and illness, and so things could be revering up in a way that people really aren't they're not really enjoying, and so people could be a lot more serious now than they were before. But that's because these placements are combust. But last week we had Chiron Cazimi, and now this week we'll have Jupiter Cazimi. And when Jupiter's Cazimi, it'll make it even bigger. So when they're Cazimi, that means it's what would be in the heart of the sun, and so people will feel more joyous, more happy. Especially from the 10th until about the 12th, people be in a much better mood, more happy-go-lucky, lighter. You be getting more actual luck. You know what I mean? So when this happens, it's trying the moon. You feeling very generous, very open, open to travel, just overall, just in a sense of joy. And then there's also an aspect to Lilith where there can be a lot of self acceptance, freedom, learning to move past limits, and having possibly unusual beliefs. So dealing with your beliefs in your religious center and your sense of faith. So before we could be feeling faithless, but now this week in this passing, we're feeling a lot more faith. We're feeling a will to go on, a lot more, and our sense of faith is just in general is just renewed. Now we also this week have Venus moving into Gemini, which deals with a lot of socializing, flirting, spending, and just overall being popular, which would be a different break from Venus and Taurus, which Taurus deals more with like a steadfastness, practical, plotting approach, being financially stable, having a stable love, or um, relating to life in a more stable way, being more sensual. Where when Venus moves into Gemini, Gemini wants to socialize, it wants to flirt, it wants to spend more, it wants to be popular, it wants to chat, be chatty, it wants to move around. And I guess you could quantify it as like the talking stage. And so it opens us up for like the summer vibe. So when people talk about the way people date in the summer versus how people date when it's colder, there are certain placements that kind of open people up to have that. And like when Venus moves into Gemini, it's a more open, more flirty, more casual. We basically it's the we out here type of vibe. We out here. So that's what people are feeling, and people will be open to up to a lot more fun, which is great, especially with the Jupiter being Cazimi for a couple of days. It'll give people just a little bit of time just to enjoy themselves for however long it lasts, you know. But people are a lot more happier, a lot more carefree and lighthearted. Yes, it could probably come off a bit superficial, but what everything's going on, I think people could use a little bit more lighthearted actions or more lighter feelings. And so when this happens, it'll be trying Pluto. So again, people be able to attract love, money. I guess you could say it's the law of attraction. Um, if people can focus enough, especially with Venus being there, because it's kind of like a flighty thing. But if people can focus enough, they can attract love and money, and even Pluto, because Pluto's in Aquarius now too, and they both can kind of have like a detachment. But if they can focus enough, you can really focus on attracting or manifesting certain things. Loans can be approved, investments can go really well under this aspect. And also will square Saturn. And so this is where we have this is where the tough love comes in just a tad. When Venus squares Saturn, um, two things can happen. If we're in a good relationship or there's a lot of great structure, it can double down and fortify these things. And so what do I mean by that? When you see Venus and Saturn sometimes in hard aspects, it can mean like levels of commitment. The problem is Venus and Gemini don't really want much of a commitment. It's flirty, it's hot, it's just we coming from here, we're running around, blah blah blah. That would be a bit better for a Taurus that's more steadfast and more plotty. Like when Venus is in Taurus, if it was hitting Saturn and it got serious, it's like it's kind of part of the course. But for a flittering Gemini aspect, I don't know how well it would like to be in these dynamics, because it can either strengthen relationships or add a chill. And so distancing yourself from love or distancing yourself from even forms of money or comfort. And so I wouldn't suggest people to really push for, especially in dating and romance. We'll have to be careful with these aspects this week of trying to date anyone new or doing anything like that in regards to romance, and to a certain extent certain forms of comfort or money. But it is good in certain aspects of money where it requires more commitment and more responsibility. So if you're doing something in finances where you're doing a financial assessment, or you want to pay off your debts, or you want to analyze things and get more serious, this is great for that. Now, would the sign Gemini enjoy it? Probably not. But if you can push past all the flightiness, you can get something done with it. But for relationships that aren't really secure, um, people could be backing up off of certain things this week.
You know, like, yo, backing out of commitments. You know, you thought I was feeling you.
Yeah. Because there's certain like placements that come around. People like, well, why people, we dated and then we broke up before the summer. It's giving that energy.
Because we meant to be. It's meant to and if we come back together, then that's a different situation.
Come back together for the winter. Any questions before I start moving into rising signs, guys? Any questions?
I have a question.
Stop it. Let them. It's stupid. Let them ask their questions. You're dumb. Okay, I'm gonna give y'all a few minutes if y'all working or any questions, and then I'll start the rising signs of where y'all could feel this. How do we deal with those conflicts on our own? What do you mean, Lady Luck? Where are the conflicts happening? Like, can you just elaborate a little bit more? If you mean the conflicts that happen a little early, when I talked about the Capricorn moon and when it squares the Aries sun where it is now, is that what you're saying? Sometimes the person we're in conflict with are not with us, like the reemergence of old wounds. Yeah, I mean that can definitely happen. Um, and there could be reemergence of old wounds because Chiron was combusted for a while. So when Chiron is combusted, old wounds can reappear, and especially about things that are ruled by Aries. So having conflict about who we are as a person, or having conflict about maybe things that maybe there were things about subjects of bullying, or people saying insensitive things, or just in general, like just old conflicts. People could get into their bags about it. It could also be about maybe sexual relationships. People can get into their bags about that as well. And so that can bring up old wounds. Maybe it could be an old wound about masculine energy, or just, men in general. That happens too, because of like it's in the sign of Aries. It can also be people's creativity and their own driving force too. So, but some of these things is like, having to be more emotionally open, and having to use teamwork and be open to new experiences, because how things are aspected, it kind of forces you to be open to new experiences and using teamwork. So you just have to be open to that. All right, so we're about to get into the rising signs. The first sign is Capricorn. So for Capricorn risings and for Capricorn sun, the this new kind of moon, or where we are in the moon phase, will happen in your first house. But this originally happened in your third house. And so what we're going to be having is where communication could be shaping our identity, or communities could be shaping our identities, or siblings could be shaping our identities. How we speak, how we're learning messages, and what we're getting, the mind is changing. So the mind changes who we are as a person, and people are getting some rearranging from that, and it questions or push and pulls onto their own identity. Now, with Venus moving into Gemini this week for Capricorns and for Capricorn um, Sun and risings, this is going to be in your fifth house, and so for you guys, this will be a lot of luxury. You know, wanting more luxurious things, wanting nicer things. Um, this could be about kids or your relationship or your dynamics to kids. Um, could be, you know, wanting to see your children at center stage or shine, or creative pursuits and projects shine. This could also deal with playing, socializing, and hobbies and sports and vacay and being on vacation. And so I can see a lot of Capricorn risings or suns wanting to just get out of here and just run off and do their own thing. They want to just enjoy themselves and have a blast. And it's kind of on par, especially since we're moving into spring and summer seasons. And so Capricorn suns really are going to want to have fun. And so the way the Aries placement has really shaped the Capricorn moon, where we are as the first house, it's it is making the Capricorn rising want to have more fun, want to be more spontaneous, because that's what an Aries placement does. It questions spontaneity and fun. And so if you have Aries in your fifth house, in your third house, it's kind of pushing you to be more spontaneous and fun. And now we have Venus and Gemini, so it's really going to push people, especially the Capricorn risings and sun, to be more spontaneous and more fun, and to just enjoy themselves and would enjoy lovers, sex, enjoy their children a lot more. Let me see. Hey, Yumi, you celebrated your B day in March. Are you an Aries too or a Pisces?
Let me answer that.
No. What are you gonna say?
I was gonna troll you. That's what I was gonna do.
I know. That's why I flagged you. That's why I had censored you before you spoke.
Reveal what's your sun sign.
You mean I'm a Pisces. But yeah, so the Capricorn risings and sun are going to be having a lot more fun, and also be dealing with certain aspects of investment. And so maybe you could be investing, you know, into different activities, especially since Venus is moving into Gemini. You could be more um, impulsive with how you invest certain things, you know, because Gemini is not really practical or logical, but because it squares Saturn, that could give you some time to research investments versus just being reckless, you know. Just think about it. Just think about it. Any questions, Capricorn, Suns, and Rises, before I move on to Aquarius? Okay, so for Aquarius, Suns, and Risings, um, this is going to happen in your 12th house, and before you had it in your second house. And so the second house deals with self-esteem, it deals with money and what you own. And so now, you know, the Capricorn um sun, where not the sun, the Capricorn moon, where it is in your 12th house. And so it's going to deal with unconscious emotional urges. It's going to deal with, you know, hidden emotions, and also dealing with unconscious like I guess you could say instinctual behaviors that you have that could be affecting your second house and what you own, and why you're so impulsive with money, or why you're so impulsive or aggressive with certain self-esteem or certain other dynamics that it relates to the second house, which is the things you own and your self-esteem. And so it's going to deal with unconscious things, and maybe it's impulsive because like with Capricorn being in a 12th house, it could deal with, you know, being Capricorn likes to be resourceful of being a proper use. And so maybe there's an unconscious urge of like, maybe you come in and you feel like you have to be the hero, or to be, you know, kind of out there, you know, taking on more challenges, so that way you can feel like you can be more useful. And you have to just deal with the unconscious or psychological urges that puts you in. So when will the moon be in Capricorn, by the way? I thought the moon was currently in Libra. No, the moon moves different signs about every 2.5 days to 3 days. So right now the moon is in Scorpio, but it will be in Capricorn possibly by tomorrow. And so when we have a lunar phase or a lunation, when a new moon starts in a certain zodiac sign, the cycle will go through all 12 signs, but it will hit very hard points through the modalities that they're in. So right now we're in a cardinal modality. So at the end of March, we started in a new moon in Aries. The next week we had something in Cancer, and then the following week we'll have something. We had the Libra full moon on the 6th. Or this week, which is the last bit of this whole cycle, we have a quarter moon in Capricorn before we go into the next new moon. But that will be a little bit different. But it goes through the whole 12 signs. But when the moon hits into certain modes, whatever the new moon was for that month, or at the beginning of the cycle, it's going to square it because there's only so many degrees before it hits 90, or before it hits a 180, which is an opposition. Hopefully that makes sense. So like if we started a new moon in Pisces, when the moon moves into Virgo, Gemini, and Sag, is either going to square or it's going to oppose that moon. And so we're going to have to resolve certain issues that the new moon has set into place. Hopefully that makes sense. I see. I was thinking of new moon. Hey, King Hebrew. No, I can see why, but a new moon, it starts the energy, and then you go through all 12 signs. But when it hits the stuff in the same modes, so if the new moon is fixed, when it hits fixed zodiac signs, that's when it would be square or opposing. You will feel a lot of tension because it's landing in places where the moon will intensify those places. If we're having a mutable rotation, the mutable signs will be up. Right now we're in cardinal signs, so that's what is really going to cause a lot of tension because the new moon was in Aries. So that's where a lot of the tension would be. Okay, so as far as in Aquarius suns and risings, Venus is going to move into your fourth house, and so this is going to deal with marriage, family, people becoming grandparents, people becoming parents, um, or stuff like that. Then you also deal with being conservative, financially conservative, and also deals with real estate. And so, like anything you buy necessarily for, you know, land or dealing with certain dynamics for the home, these can have a lot more long term or long standing implications right now because Venus is going there. So we're gonna be a lot more serious when these type of themes come in, especially when we talked about earlier where Venus is going to square Saturn, and so it's going to push in a lot more serious placements there. It's going to push in a lot more serious placements there, so you're going to have to get more serious instead of having more fun at home. So, any questions, Aquarius risings, before we move on to Pisces risings? Okay, so for Pisces risings, this is going to happen in your 11th house. And so this deals with friends, groups, hopes, dreams. This also deals with being the black sheep and where you stand out or where you meet people who are also black sheeps or odd as well. And so the origin port, it was in your in your first house. And so this deals with, how groups in these types of dynamics can you're having an impact on it. And because like Pisces has been going through their own transformation of trying to understand who they are, especially with Neptune in the first house and having this whole ambiguity of who you are and what you're trying to go through right now as a person. Your self discovery could come right into context, or can kind of create some tension with friends. It can also create some tensions with your hopes and dreams, and like, is this the same thing I wanted? Do I still want the same things? You're growing as a person, and you might not want the same things you started off wanting. you know you might not align with the same friendships that you started off with. So this is a whole different transformation, and it's going to call into question even certain groups and organizations. You know what? I don't even really aspire to those things anymore. And so this could change a lot of things for you, and you might not want the same things anymore, you know? So it'll be interesting because there's so much drive and desire, especially with an Aries placement going in your rising sign in the first house. And so they have a lot more drive. And so your understanding is if that drive and desires are still something you really want. And are you working towards things that you still really want? Hold on, guys.
One moment, everyone. BMORE will be back in a moment. She'll be back in a moment.
All right, I'm back, y'all. Back to Pisces risings and suns. So that's where you're gonna mainly kind of feel the pull. You're gonna feel the pull about whether your hopes and dreams are really the same, whether your desires are still the same, whether you want to socialize or network with some certain people and groups that you know you've been networking with. Like, do you still want to keep these friends? Do you need help? There can also be some things where you might need help with certain things, or you might have to look for sources of help. Now with Venus and Gemini, this would square usually a lot of people's sun or rising sign, because Pisces is mutable, and Venus is mutable, and the Venus sign of where Venus is mutable because it's in Gemini. And so you guys could be feeling a lot more tension. You could feel a lot more sexual tension between certain people and certain things. And put you in a lot of conflict or a lot of tense situations. Venus is moving into your third house, and so this is going to deal with a lot of communication, socializing, groups, people around the neighborhood. Maybe you get a crush on the guy who lives next door, you know, type of dynamics. But this will be a lot of charm, socializing, flirting. You could become very popular, and you could have more spending. So you have to watch your spending habits. You could be running around the neighborhood, going to a lot of parties, you know, out here just getting it. It just makes you more social, more chatty, more flirtatious in general, especially if you have any predominant Pisces placements, because they're both mutable, so they'll be squaring each other. Any questions, Pisces, Sun, and Risings, before we move on to Aries? Okay, so for Aries, Sun, and Risings, this will be around your 10th or 11th. But the origin point again started in your first, and so this will be a lot different than the Pisces getting to know themselves, because you guys are trying to work on being a lot more adventurous, and being more confident. And because Jupiter and Chiron are combust in in the sign of Aries, you know, this can call into question, you know, all of the work you've done about feeling more confident and more I guess you could say whole, in the sense of being adventurous to try new things. Because at first you guys were being a lot more adventurous. Same with Pisces being a lot more adventurous. But with these combustions, it can make you feel less adventurous, more closed-minded, less open to new experiences. And also feel just a little bit triggered. But now with Jupiter being Cazimi, you could kind of start to feel kind of, you know, you in your bag a little bit. You can kind of feel more open. You know, your nostrils is a little bit wide open, and you're feeling yourself.
Oh, and be more, just in case they weren't at the other one, just for the other people, if they, you know, did miss one of your streams, you want to tell them what it means again for Jupiter being Cazimi?
No, because I told them the earlier in the stream. So if they showed up late, replay, rewind. Y'all, I told y'all earlier. I've been telling y'all every day for weeks. Y'all, come on now. If you showed up late, you gotta watch the replay. But no, when a Cazimi happens, a Cazimi is when a planet gets very close to the sun and it comes supercharged or powerful, and it's considered auspicious. And so Jupiter is Cazimi this week with the sun, so it's considered auspicious. So we can have a lot of luck. We'll feel more open-minded and more adventurous, and overall just more confident. So yeah. For you guys, this will be affecting from the effects of your changes. And so not only for y'all with this change, like your social groups and friends, but this could also be changing career patterns and how hard you're ambitiously chasing your career, or outward goals like that. It's chasing sources of power, people in power, and just overall wanting to be seen in society, you know. So, and you're also your reputation. Maybe you want to be known for something and you're working hard to be known for some of these things. The next would be your Venus. And so Venus and Gemini is moving into your second house. And so, you know, you guys have to be a bit careful, because when Venus moves into your second house, is generally considered auspicious, and you can make a lot more money. And so you'll be more attuned to comforts. You want better finances, and things are centered on your values and what you value and what's important to you. Also on your self-esteem. And so you be also looking for a lot more financial security. The only, I guess you could say, the downside of it is that it's Gemini. And so when Gemini moves into your second house, there can be impulse issues. Okay. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Let me know if y'all can hear me. Can y'all hear me? Can you guys hear me? Okay, cool. Because it's buffering. All right, but as long as you guys can keep some of this impulsivity down, you'll be fine. Because you're in line to make a lot more money. And a Saturn will come, I guess, to give you guys more structure. With the Saturn coming into that, hitting that whole Venus placements, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. Any questions, Aries risings and suns, before I move on to Taurus? All right. So for Taurus suns and risings, this will occur in your 10th house, dealing with your career. The origin point dealt with your 12th house, and so it's dealing with very subconscious or hidden or secretive motives, also on your own personal beliefs. And so dealing with your beliefs and how it affects your career and your reputation. And maybe your beliefs are getting in the way of your career, your reputation, and where you want to go. Maybe it's calling into question. Maybe you believe something else, and maybe it's time for you to make actions or changes accordingly. So, based off of that, but that's what we do. We're dealing with a lot of subconscious urges and about what are we going to do, and how that affects how people see us, how we respond to the public. So it deals with that. And I remember, if I remember correctly, I think Taurus already had the whole rumor gossip mill thing. I think it's them, and I think possibly Scorpio, but y'all already had like rumor gossip mill energy anyway on y'all. And so maybe there's a subconscious urge or subconscious or hidden aspects, which could also be secrets and gossiping, or secrets in general, or hidden. It also deals with hidden motives, that is affecting your career. And you might come to a resolve of just getting down to the bottom of what's affecting my career, what's affecting my reputation, how people see me, because sometimes it could just be challenges, and or challengers, people who are aggressors, people who are bullies, especially with it originally being in the sign of Aries. And so Aries can deal with hidden aggression or borderline or unconscious aggression, or maybe you have hidden drive. So maybe you thought I wanted something, and then you realize how ambitious you were. Like, sometimes people be late to figure out their own teeth. So maybe you realize, I really do want to compete in my career field. I really want to tighten up my shit, and I really want to be that kind of girl. I want to be that guy, So maybe you want to tighten up your shit and really start competing, or maybe you have a lot more hidden aggression and it slips out, and you're like, you know what? I don't really want to seem like the crazy guy that starts fights with people when we all link up, It could possibly come off that way. And so that's what you're really going to be dealing with. You want to be dealing with secrets, hidden aggression, and how that's going to affect your career. Now, with Venus moving into Gemini, this could be around your first or second, depending how wide of a gap your ascendant is. And so this is going to be, again, impulsive spending, luxury. Try to focus on budgeting and a lot of passion. I would suggest you to try to think long term and not be too overwhelmed by your passions or desires. This also will give you more thoughts around finances and what you value. And so try to use that to think about all the hidden or subconscious urges or the hidden motives of other people. But also try to think about literally what you value. Do you value, not going into debt or spending too much or having things be too out of control? Think about what you value, even long times with money and your sense of comforts as well. Any questions, Taurus, Sun, and Risings, before I move on? All right, so for Gemini Risings, this is going to occur in your ninth house, which deals with your sense of faith, adventure, certain levels of adventure, travel, publications, forms of long studying, and forms of religion too. And this is going to, the origin point occurred in your 12th house. And so there are going to be subconscious urges around, or hidden urges around religion and spirituality, faith, and how they all tie to it. So are you faithful in an unconscious level? And maybe our faith has been tried subconsciously, and we have to think about, are we still faithful? Because it's one thing to have a lot of faith and trust when everything's going right. It's a little bit different when faith and trust and you're in a challenging situation and you just kind of have to keep pushing and keep persevering. So it's going to call into question with these things. Also, there could be a lot of hidden or secret things that come out, that can call into question your faith or trust or secrets, or even some legal or court aspects that maybe you didn't see. So some hidden court or legal things that can come out just randomly. You'll have Venus in the first house, and so when Venus in the first house, again, very passionate, very intense, a lot of travels, a lot travel, but more so fluttering around, so more socializing than traveling. It might equal traveling, but it might not be traveling the way you think. But like a lot more socializing and a lot more flirty, and you just want to be out here running around, be more open, just very charming, but just be careful not to do too much, do too much, because again, you still have Saturn looming over, so it's still try to think in the terms of long-term things and not stirring up too much. You still have Saturn there, keep locking it into place. So I could still see some breakups and challenging situations when it comes to romantic dynamics or even money on the surface, like we talked about earlier. So again, some of y'all with some of these first and second house placements, I would try not to be too flirty and try not to spend too much, because the placements aren't going to be here forever, and you don't want to put yourself in a jam, for a transit. Any questions before I move on to Cancer? All right. So for Cancer suns and risings, this will occur in your 8th house, and the origin point was your 11th house. And so in the 8th house, when the moon is in the 8th house, it's very emotional, very subjective, and very suspicious, always reading into everyone's motives, and all just very intense. Like, what that's supposed to mean? If you said that, then maybe it's something, maybe they meant this instead of saying that, and all of this different types of stuff. Just because somebody say something, that don't mean nothing really deep there. Like, just chill. And this is your origin point is your 11th house, so this can affect your friend group. So maybe you turned into, you over here investigating people, you turned into a whole Crime Stopper, and these are their stories, Law and Order, SVU type shit, and your friend groups on your social network. And I could see people getting annoyed and tired with you. So like, you might be doing a bit too much, and it doesn't help that because your rising is cardinal. This aspect will also be opposing your ascendant sign, because remember, you're cardinal. So we talked about the mutable girls going through it this week, so all the mutable girls, but also the cardinal girlies, so Capricorn going through it, Aries going through it, but in particular Cancer. So you should be feeling it too, because you're cardinal. And so, people could be getting kind of overwhelmed with all of your antics and overwhelming intensity and emotions. And it's very subjective. And just because you feel emotional, that doesn't mean it's right. Meaning, like, I can feel very emotional about my feelings, but doesn't mean what I feel is right, or doesn't mean what I suspect. Keyword this week for Cancers and Cancer risings: you suspect. Doesn't mean it's true. Hopefully that you suspect doesn't mean it's true. Okay? Just very intense. Very intense. Just take it down a notch, because you don't want to ruin your reputation and make people just be looking at you crazy, because it's going to affect your friend group. Because your original placement that you had, this stuff in Aries, was your friend group. Now, if you do suspect something and it is true, that's one thing, but you don't want to overly read too deep into nothing, and just you end up being the person that stirs up drama in the group, because some of y'all have stir up drama energy this week. So just be careful. So Venus is in the 12th, and so again, this would deal with law of attraction, being able to attract things to you, especially with these transits. Now, you do have some transits where you can attract things to you, whether it's money and just getting things, done. So try, and maybe even like you want to get a new love or romance, you can even try to use some you can try to flirt with some people, and you might can get it done this week. You might can slide up on somebody this week that you've been trying to beg for a minute. So, but try practicality. Try to be practical. That's the thing. Practical. I don't know. The cancers might be impractical this week. Try practicality and try to be objective. Try to look at the situation from other points of views. Try to hear people out from their perspective. You might not be right. Okay, you don't like try not to. I'm trying to help y'all because maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago y'all was already acting up anyway. So like, really try. Okay, just try to stay logical. Try to be logical this week. Um, Try not to take any financial or romantic risk. You know, because even though Venus is in a placement where you can do the law of attraction and you can do financial planning. Remember, I told y'all it's good for investigating your finances this week. Not necessarily for recklessness, but I also understand Venus is in Gemini, so there'll be a urge to be reckless, period. Because Gemini is not necessarily always the most practical sign. So try not to take any risk, even with love or money. Just try to be practical. And if you want to go through debt or financial planning or restructuring, cool, but nothing too crazy. Also, like I said before, with being subjective and jumping to conclusions, I'm going to say this again because cancers are crazy. So I have to keep saying this because they really are crazy. Listen, don't jump to conclusions, but also if you feel like something's crazy going on, try to let things play out. So for Cancer, Sun, and Risings, give things time for certain things to play out. Because if you give it enough time to play out, you're going to see something. Okay? So let things play out. And there again, like I said, there could be some confusion around finances and money. So really take your time. It could be some confusions around romance. So really take your time. So just give it a minute. Don't try to be too raggedy. Just breathe. You'll be fine. I'm glad I took the week off so I don't have to deal with this narcissical energy at work, baby. Because I'm telling you, the Cancers, they a little bit off this week. Off. And I'm not saying, well, let me say this to be fair to Cancers. This week, because Venus is moving into their 12th house, they're not wrong for suspecting that somebody could be playing either with their romance or maybe money, or something's just not right, or there could be confusion or something not right. Because sometimes when Neptune moves into aspects with money, sometimes people can lose money, or like when it moves into like the 12th house, they can lose money, or there could be confusion around money or confusion around love. Miscommunicate. Like I thought you liked me, I didn't like you like that, or we were supposed to meet here. I sent you the text message, it never went through. Like weird stuff like that. The downside, because they're not wrong. Now that could be really people being on some BS, but the downside is because the moon is in an aspect what makes them highly suspicious and highly subjective. They're not objective, where it could really just be a mistake or something like a weird freak accident that just happened randomly. They could end up accusing people or coming with smoke that is a smokeless event. No, there are no smokers here. Hopefully that makes sense. Like that, y'all could come ready with some action, and it's like, girl, it's just a blunder. Nothing happened. It's a dub. Like, it's really a bust. Nothing happened. And you coming with all this energy, but now I really have smoke with you. Which is why it could be bad for because it's in the 8th house, but the original point is in the 11th house, so it could be bad for like socializing in groups. So maybe they start all this drama around friends and stuff like that, and maybe the friends is like, girl, I don't know if I want to invite you to the next get together, because every time you come around, it's giving drama. It's giving drama. So I just want the Cancers to be sure before they sure, because they are crazy. They're crazy. Okay? Any questions, Cancer, Suns, and Risings before we move on to Leo? All right. So for Leo, Suns, and Risings, this is going to occur in your 6th house, which deals with work and getting things done, taking on tasks, dealing with criticism, diets, routines, projects. maybe charity, and maybe pets, dealing with your pets and being of service in general. The origin point is your 10th house, and so in the 10th house, it deals with your reputation and your career. And so maybe there's a disconnect between what you're trying to do and how it affects your reputation. So you might have a reputation of being like a business shark, or you're kind of like very intense, and then people see you being of service and you're working hard and you're trying to be there for people, and you're really just doing your task, and that might could cause some conflict there. You're trying to be of service and be of use somewhere, and it could really, I guess, take people off guard. Um, or your reputation can sometimes precede you in a way where it can get in the way of daily activities, daily responsibilities that you're trying to do. So just keep that in mind. I really don't know. I don't know. It's weird because I really don't know what you could do to kind of break that up. I would have to really like sit down and think about it. But if you just brace yourself for that energy, brace yourself for that impact, then it is what it is. So like basically your reputation preceding you, like people just know what to get into before they step in around. Like it is what it is. Okay? So Venus in Gemini is going to be in your 11th house. And so even though Venus is kind of flirty, I guess you could say superficial, they don't want to be having no deep, especially in Gemini, they don't want to have no deep conversations. They fluttering around, they doing their things. Venus is going to be in the 11th house, and so this is going to deal with mental versus passion. And so there's a part where it's going to be one frivolous in Gemini, but there's another aspect where they want to have like more mental, intellectual pursuits versus having very deep, passionate, I guess you could say primal pursuits. And that could be a little bit of an issue. Maybe you feel a push and pull. I don't know if Leo gets a little love triangle with the more passionate person and then a intellectualist. Girl, I don't know. I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know what's going on with your love life, because that's a bit of an interesting like twist. But I can also see y'all having more interactions with more important people, or people who maybe have more connections. I can also see y'all possibly starting to distance yourselves from people, which would be interesting because, like I said, with the Venus and Saturn, there could be a lot of distance. This could be possibly like sometimes breaking up or wanting to not be a part of like groups anymore, friends anymore. This could also be like you don't have the same. This could also affect your dreams and your hopes, and so maybe you're not enjoying it the same way as you used to. So there could be some distance. And really, this is all in the pursuit for independence, wanting to be more independent. I can also see that there's a pull possibly to be generous, but unlike some of the other signs that's going to possibly be struggling this week, you'll be generous and you'll be economical. So, like, if you see somebody hungry, maybe you give them a coupon, like very practical, or like maybe you bought them something on sale, or if you see somebody in a bind, you're going to find a way that's very practical, economical to help them. Like you go in there to buy somebody, like, somebody like low on groceries, you be nice, and then you go buy them some food, but then you find you work all the sales, and so you get all that food, but you get everything on sale, something like that, something very helpful, but like economically sound at the same time. Hopefully that makes sense, but y'all gonna have your things a little bit screwed on straight though. But there will be a push and pull y'all feel with, what are my passions, but what if like also my mental aptitude and my intellect, like what I'm trying to sort those out. So a lot of distancing, a lot of alone time, a lot of downtime. Y'all need a lot of downtime. Any questions, Leo, suns, and risings before we move on to Virgo? Okay, so for Virgo, suns, and risings, this is going to be in your 5th house with your lovers, sex, creativity, children. The origin point was around your 8th or 9th house, dealing with finances and money in general. And possibly also certain aspects of your sense of faith and religion and in-laws, and possibly some legal implications in court. So there'll be some things where other people's finances can maybe, or your spouse's finances can impact how much leisure time you have and how much creativity you have. And so maybe you're forced to take up a second job, which crunches up your leisure time and financial time, or maybe something happens where it impacts your children in a way, because of these joint finances or joint financial things or in-law things. I don't know, maybe you're instead of taking your kids to daycare to save money, maybe you got to drop them off at your grandparents' house, and maybe you don't like the in-laws like that. I don't know, but that kind of flows into the way of that, and so it can mess with like your creativity. It can mess with your sex life. It can mess with your children. Dynamics like that. Even romance and lovers in the house. Maybe your partner has to, or whoever you're with, they have to take up a second job to, make these ends meet. They gotta get this money. So I can see that going on for Virgo suns and risings. For Venus in the 10th house, and it's in Gemini, this will deal with money, status, and power, ambitions. You'll be a lot more ambitious. You have a lot more goals. And you want to get into relationships with people who can further those goals, which is good because when Venus is in Gemini, you want to socialize a lot more. You want to be more sociable, so you're able to socialize with these people who can get you money. And you already had some money problems anyway, so try to work that over in that direction so you can go get you some money. So just think about that. Any questions for Virgo suns and risings before we move on to Libra? All right, so for Libra suns and risings, this occur in your 4th house will deal with home, family, childhood aspects, feelings to a certain extent, but predominantly things that are hidden. And the origin was in your 7th house. And so this deals with maybe there are some hidden aspects that you learn about other people or they unveil about you. Other people could be affecting your family dynamics, your home life. Maybe other people affect your home life, whether it's lover, like whether it's like somebody you're dating, co-workers, rivals. They come in and they affect your home life and things that are hidden, your ancestral life, things that are tied to childhood. Also, like even food, like types of foods or celebration, they come in and really affect that. And so other people affecting these types of dynamics. Venus will be in your 9th house. So when Venus is in the 9th house, it's dealing with luck. You want to be independent in finances and love. You don't really want to deal with these types of stuff, which will be very interesting, especially since your 7th house squares your 4th. And so there can be a level of like hidden or privacy dynamics that are kind of getting interfered with other people, while you also wanting, there's a longing for freedom. You don't want to be bothered or bogged down with some of this stuff. So you want to be more independent in finances and love. You want to be more adventurous. You want to travel. And you want to get more education or learn about the world on top of being sociable, flirting, traveling, all this stuff. But I would suggest you to try to travel and socialize or gain more knowledge in a cheap way instead of taking more money risk. So manage your money. Try not to splurge too much. And for people who want to do stuff in education, for people who wants to do stuff in education, I would suggest you to do that because more education and some, depending on your career field, will equal more money. So if you want to take this time for Libra suns and risings, if you want to take this time to level up, to get more education or to better yourself for more money, depending on what you're going to push yourself out there to do, I would do it. But don't try to splurge too much or have all this adventure and then fuck up your money, because I'm telling you, when the transits move, the bills don't move. The bills still come. They still coming. They still coming to you. So just think about that. Any questions, Libra, suns, and risings, before I move on to Scorpio? All right, so for Scorpio, suns, and risings, this is going to occur in your 3rd house, which deals with your neighborhood, community, neighbors, siblings, and the origin point was your 6th house. And so they could deal with aspects with your daily routines being impacted by neighbors, siblings, and communities. This could also deal with your diet being impacted by these things as well. Also, responsibilities, pets, all of these things can be affected. Also, your routine could be affecting the way you communicate, how you talk to people, the messages that you get, the way you learn certain forms of learning or knowledge can have an impact on your daily health routine, your diet. So this can kind of break all of this up. Maybe you're not able to communicate, do certain type of communicative things, or even communal things, um, as far as in sense of community anymore, or maybe you have to work through some challenges so that way you can keep doing it. High dark horse, it's okay. You can always watch the replay. So they can kind of things like this can kind of like get in the way of that. So then we have Venus in your eighth house in Gemini, which is kind of weird because Venus is so okay. The eighth house is so intense, but Gemini is very like light. So I think that's very interesting. But Venus in the eighth house in general deals with money gains, investments, inheritance, love, rocky, and love being rocky in a sense, like rocky love, passion, jealousy, and possessiveness. And so this can also deal with, to a certain extent, sometimes very intense, or money being in danger, comforts being in danger, rockiness. And so even though you can still get financial gains, I suggest like this will come through socializing and talking, and networking more. But Saturn will be there to stabilize it, and so there'll be more stability or more commitment in trying to gain financial things. But it can also be more commitment in your love life. And so even though there's a lot of rockiness in your love life because Venus is moving into a very intense house, the Saturn there will actually keep it stable. So it probably will thwart some of these effects of like jealousy, rocky love life, and passion. If y'all already are on a good steady course, you already have a good structure, a steady course for your money and finances, this actually can put into more effort or more structure that it could keep it stable, where you might actually see the financial gains there. That's what I think. Especially if y'all listened to me maybe a few weeks ago when I told the Scorpio suns and risings, and I think Libra had one too. Well, this was a good investment week, especially for the Scorpio risings. Y'all had and suns, y'all had a real good investment week. Probably like towards the beginning of March when I was like looking through y'all stuff. I don't know. Maybe your investments do good this week because it stabilizes the energy. All right. Any questions, Scorpio, Suns, and Risings before I move over to Sag? Sorry, I'm driving. Do you have any advice for dealing with intense family for Libra? Okay, yes, okay. Y'all have intense energy with family dynamics. Now, if let me go back up here real quick to see if I wrote down anything. Because as the moon moves away out of Capricorn, it will move into Aquarius. And so when it's in Capricorn, which will be in Capricorn starting tomorrow for about 2 days, 2 to maybe 2.5 days. Okay, because I know some of y'all came in late. For Libra, particularly for Libra suns and risings, y'all don't want to deal with a lot more issues with other people affecting your home life and your home energy, and things that are more private and closed off, or ancestry, or other people affecting like maybe family dynamics. And so with that being said, you guys can obviously watch the beginning, but there will be a time under this placement when just for these past few days when it moves from maybe like the 12th to maybe about around the 13th ish, maybe. Y'all will deal with a lot of controlling family members. But you'll also understand what will keep you from being successful, because something your family is going to show you, they're going to show you what's holding you back from being successful. And I talked about this earlier because y'all came in late, but they're going to show you what's holding you back from being successful. It's unfortunate they might cut up in your face, but you will see it. But there's also a strong need for romance, fantasy, dreams, and visualization. And there also can be some subtle manipulation from others or yourself. And so you might have to finesse your family members out your face, village brother. You might got to manipulate them out your face. Because as the week goes on, when the moon is in Aquarius, you'll actually as the moon goes on, you'll actually you'll be more susceptible to get into conflicts with women. So if this family member is a female, you could get into a argument with them, but that's because there's a desire for change and excitement. And there'll also be some issues dealing with your unique self and wanting to how to deal with your uniqueness and whether you want to be attached to certain things or detached. So like as this moves on, like it will get peaceful towards the end of the week, but like from maybe tomorrow to maybe about like the 13th, 14th ish, I will honestly just take it in as one, solitude is one thing. Because by the end of the week, I think y'all will have solitude, especially for the Libras, because the moon conjuncts Neptune. So there'll be quiet time or alone time by the end of the week. I would really maximize as much quiet time as you can get from the 12th to maybe like the 13th or 14th, because they're crazy. But if you do bump into a crazy family member, because there's a strong chance of arguing from maybe around the 14th to maybe around the 16th ish, I would really try to push for some quiet time. You're going to get that no matter what by the end of the week. Because when the moon conjuncts Neptune in these types of ways, you're going to get solitude. But from the 12th to maybe like the 15th, 16th, they're going to be being weird. Now, the good thing is you'll have luck because it's in Aries. And so, wherever you have, I guess, Aries in your chart is where, because it's Cazimi right now. So, it's where you have luck. You have a little opening of Cazimi for these next couple days. I would try to see if I can squeeze any luck out of here. And then with Venus moving into your ninth house, you can also have luck at school and university, like college, people who are maybe clergy members or professors. Maybe you can travel for education. Maybe you could travel for education and get out of there. Or maybe your church going to retreat and you can get up on out of here. Because that's how it's kind of set up. Hopefully that helps, but no, they will be crazy this week. I'm sorry, they're gonna do something weird. Hopefully that helps. But you do have something with Jupiter or like professors or types of like spiritual leaders that can get you out of somewhere. I don't know if you have one, but see if you could call around people who are teachers, people who are spiritual leaders, that you could get up out of there. Thank you so much. I got you. Yeah. Cause I don't know, maybe you could call a pastor I don't know, cause some people's pastors are nice. They let you stay at their house. I don't know. Or maybe a professor that you cool with, cause some professors really do be like on point. I mean, like old school teachers that be like, oh, my student needs to go where they need to go. Or maybe they be like, girl, we going a semester abroad. Do you want to go? And you might gotta go. Cause it's something about travel that's gonna work for you. There's something about travel that's gonna work for you. You just gotta get out of there. Cause your ruler is Venus. It's traveling. It's in the ninth house. It wants to get away. You're gonna find a way to get away. All right. So the last one is Sag Suns and Risings. So for Sag Suns and Risings, this is going to occur in your second house. With what you possess and your self-esteem. It originated in your fifth house, was dealing with your creativity, your certain forms of self-expression, personality, lovers, sex, and children. So you're definitely going to feel a origin point, and maybe you started dating somebody and how it affects your self-esteem and what you possess. So you have to really see that and call it into question. Also, it could be your sex life, or maybe the lack thereof, and how it's affecting your self-esteem and how much you own and how do you feel about yourself. Also your creativity. How creative are you being? Are you doing the things you always used to do, and how is that affecting your sense of self and your self-worth? So that will call all of those into question. Venus, especially Sag being a mutable sign, um this is going to be in your 7th house, and so this is going to deal with beauty, art, trying to harmonize, partnerships, close friends, and friendships or relationships in general. You want to look for fulfillment in here. And so it seems like as this go forward, you might be trying to meet someone new, or you might be open to having a relationship. I don't know if it's platonic or not, but trying to have more platonic dynamics or more romantic dynamics, that's up to you. But it seems like there's a need for relationship dynamics to really support you emotionally right now. Hey Steve, hey Lisa. So you'll be dealing with a lot of that. You'll be reaching out to friends more. There can be a lot more communication, and you could be also be presenting something to the public or doing some presentations. I also think because it's in the 7th house, you could also be looking for dynamics where there could be some balancing in a way, and it might not always be harmonious. I want y'all to think about it, Sag, Suns, and Risings, in a way of this. If everyone says no, then there might be some dynamics where people start to say yes, or you say yes in response to the no. So I just take it in as possibly some contrarian energy, either from you or other people. Because I know people see like Libra and 7th house energy a certain way, but sometimes this energy can be contrarian, or they try to balance out the energy, and sometimes it can be as being opposing. And with Venus moving into your 7th house, because it deals with harmony and balance, there can also be a lot of judgment maybe you feel about love and finances and comfort. But it could also possibly be certain things where maybe there's a standard, and maybe your standards go up for partnership, love, and dynamics, especially in trying to engage in getting more relationships, or wanting to have conversations with other people in their relationship dynamics. So regardless if it's romantic relationships or platonic, maybe your standards end up going up, especially in your desire or quest for looking for these relationship dynamics and self-expression, because all of this stuff started in your 5th house. So your self-expression, all of this stuff, whatever the changes or challenges you had to take on with the Aries new moon in your 5th house, it's changing your self-esteem, but it's also going to have an impact on the type of relationship dynamics you're going to have going forward. So I really suspect that y'all self-esteem, if y'all did what y'all supposed to do, because free will is the thing, whatever challenges, depending how y'all handled y'all challenges with, romantic partners, sex, creativity, children, depending how y'all handle that, this is going to affect y'all love life and affect how much y'all make money. It's going to affect y'all money and y'all financial resources. Any questions, Sag Risings? About Sag Rising, Sag Suns, any of that? Any general questions that have nothing to do with Sag Suns or Sag Risings? Any questions about this week? All right. So because we don't have any questions, I'm going to re-upload the video, and I'll put the timestamps in. Y'all might have to give it a second, because sometimes the videos be kind of long, so it take it a second for it to re-upload. And sometimes it takes even the next day, but I'll have all of this be re-uploaded with the timestamps, so y'all can go through and find something and re-listen to something as many times as y'all want to. But I'll have it re-uploaded. Hopefully it just doesn't take too long from this device. How can Taurus use their luck for this week? Um, it really depends. No problem, Lord Payne. Um, let's see. How can Taurus use their luck for this week? That's what she was asking me. Okay, so this is the 12th house. I'm gonna be honest, because Venus is in your 12th, not Venus, Jupiter is in your 12th house. Um, when Venus is in your 12th, not Venus, Jupiter in your 12th house, you can have hidden luck. But because Jupiter is combusted for a while, but it's also Cazimi this week, honestly, up until the 12th or 14th, y'all won't be having luck anyway. And it's kind of like a unexpected luck that come in at the last minute. I mean, I wouldn't like bank on it, like luck coming in at like unexpected or unseen luck. But because it's in your Jupiter and all of that is in your 12th house, that's how it's going to be rolling through, because Jupiter, that's where it is. And it's kind of inauspicious. It's Cazimi, so you'll have a very strong unsuspecting luck, like just things just work out and you don't know how. You be like, when they be like, girl, God really pulled this through for me from like the 10th to maybe about the 12th or the 13th. That's when you'll have it. I mean, you've been having it because it's there, even though it's combusted. It still works. It's just a little weaker, but it'll be super strong. It'll be super strong. So especially as it deal with certain forms of like escapism, belief, creativity, art, like you could possibly have a lot of luck. So for Alicia, if you want to start writing, actually this is what I would tell you to do, because I think, Alicia, you said that you wanted to get back into writing. If you wanted to start writing about more fantasy stuff, you probably would have some luck with that, because like your stuff is going to be fantasy anyway. So if you wrote about like more fantasy worlds or dream stuff or dynamics like that, you probably have luck. Let's see. How will Venus and Gemini affect Aries? I talked about that earlier, so you would listen to the playback, but in general, it's going to be in your second house. So money, comfort. But you know, you can listen to the playback though. So you be thinking about money and comfort. Any other question, guys? All right. Hopefully you guys have a safe week. Like I told y'all earlier, in the stream, y'all be careful with driving. I understand most of the placements that the certain parts that are aspected better this week, and that's great. But because Mars is not the strongest right now, y'all really be careful driving. Y'all be careful on the road. Don't drive crazy or none of that. Y'all have a blessed week. I'm gonna next week we're gonna be talking about eclipse season, which will be lasting for 6 months, and I'll be doing a breakdown on that. So y'all try to get here as quick as y'all can. And how that's going to be affecting you for kind of like months to come, and I'll try to explain it. Hopefully it makes sense to you guys. And also the shifting of the lunar nodes, we'll be discussing that next week, because we're going to be on the new moon cycle. We have the eclipse, and we also have Mercury in retrograde. So if anyone has any questions on Mercury in retrograde and eclipses and what do they do, what don't they do, how would that affect me, you know, because they're like supercharged. Like when we talk about these moon phases, they're done by a month, and in a month or 2 weeks they're over. When we talk about eclipses, they're gonna be done, going for like 6 months at a time. Look into the 7th house for Sag. Yes, so Venus moves into your 7th house, so y'all be having a lot of relationship stuff going on. Y'all be having a lot of relationship things going on for Sag and for Sag risings. Y'all relationship stuff is going to be the center of it, because y'all been working on y'all self-expressions. Wild Taurus always stubborn. They're fixed signs. They're always stubborn. They're not the only stubborn ones. Scorpio, Aquarius, and Leos, they're stubborn too. So y'all, they got a stubborn conglomerate. You know, they're not the only people stubborn. That's just how they are. They're fixed signs. You know. I just when they're stubborn like that, I think that there's a misuse of the energy. Because it's there for a reason, but it's not there for you to start confrontation. You know, they're Taurus or fixed signs in general are used to maintain energy. They because they're fixed, so that means they're steadfast. They want to keep stuff going. They're not necessarily there for initiation, and they're not there to end task either. They're there to keep stuff going. But if they're keeping bullshit going, I can see why that's wearing people out. I see why people complain about them. Cause they will drag it, you know, really dragging. So hopefully that helps. But y'all have a blessed evening. You guys, again, y'all guys be safe. And next week we'll be talking about the eclipse season, and we'll be talking about Mercury and retrograde. Okay? Bye.